My name is Eric, and I'm at Bridgetown Church in Portland. I was pastoring back around 2010, 2011 in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and a guy named Kevan rolled into our church. And he has a disease called SMA, which keeps him in a wheelchair and invites other people into his need. And so while that relationship began to grow, we eventually moved to Portland, Maine. So we had super distance from one another, but then we got to come back to Indiana and bought a house, and it happened to be 700-800 feet away from his home. And he called me up one day. He's like, "Hey man, I know you're in town. You can totally say no. This might be a burden to you, but would you like to be part of my normal care of getting me out of bed in the morning?" And he said, you can totally back out. Like there was a hesitation to be that vulnerable and to invite me to that much intimacy. And I said, "Man, I live around the corner. You're my brother and you're my neighbor. It would be absolute sin for me not to show up." He's like, "Cool." And so I started showing up for about 3.5 years with my buddy Kevan. And yeah, some of the best moments of my life were in his bedroom next to his bathroom for an hour to hour and a half every week, where we shared life together as good friends. My daily rhythm with Kevan would be leaving my house and driving my truck around the corner. And when I pulled in, the door was already cracked in preparation for my arrival. Like, there was already an anticipation of me to show up and for me to walk through that door. And so as soon as I'd open that screen door, Kevan and his wife, Katie, would say good morning, and I'd say what it is, and I'd walk into this room where she had already made her side of the bed and she had already gotten ready for the day, and Kevan was just waking up from his slumber. Oftentimes, he's just getting himself acclimated to being awake, and probably I am too, quite frankly. And as we talk, honestly, while I'm there to get him ready for the day, we might spend 30 or 45 minutes with him laying in the bed while we talk about life and dreams and vision and the beautiful things and the horrific things, the easy things, the hard things. And so while I'm there to get him ready, a lot of our time would be just sharing life. The difference would be I would be standing and he'd still be laying down. At that point, like I would get him ready. I'd undress him and I'd pick him up and I would take him to the bathroom early in the morning for the first time that day, make sure that he was balanced and he was positioned so that he wouldn't fall over. And then I would sit on the end of the bed, and my brother would be going to the bathroom. I'd sit on the end of the bed and we would talk for another 30 or 45 minutes. And in that time, like I think what was happening was, while I went there to serve him, in his need became the opportunity to serve me. And so I would share the deep stuff in my life about leadership, about family, about my kids. He would share about his life and his wife and his ministry and his desires, his dreams, and we would just box back and forth. And it would be more like we were out at a picnic table than we were in a bathroom. And as we did that, like we did hours and weeks and months of friendship in an hour, because we were right there and we were nowhere else. There was no time to be at work for me or at home for me. There was no time for him to be anywhere else but in the bathroom. Every conversation was the deepest conversations I probably had in my life. And I think that's what friendship is that you have the ability to navigate laughter and joy and depth and sorrow without ever defining it. And so you can talk about the wins and the losses, but it's more like a roller coaster ride. And I think one thing that Kevan and I would talk about is in disability, where there's physical need. Many of us in the West don't think of our need until we get there, and we will get there. But what if you're in relationship with people in need or with disability, and you begin to think about those things now, and you learn how to live in that relationship and that friendship today? And so I think in a lot of ways, Kevan's a few years younger than me, but he is wiser than me. He is kinder than me. He is more patient than me. Every mistake I made in his care, he was more kind than I deserved. He was always interested in me. not for fame or story or platitude, just me. There was no dual relationship. There was no proving, testing, or trying. It was just the simple things of Jesus in friendship and brotherhood. Kevan has about 10 or 15 friends that come through his house every week. Now, his wife is the staple. She is the faithful caregiver throughout the day, but there are several of us that would show up morning, noon, and night to jump in the gap. He learned as a young man that caregivers in the way that we do it in the West would not satisfy the need or the invitation that Jesus calls us to. And so he started inviting his friends along, whether that was crazy journeys or trips or going down in caves, taking trips to Europe or China where he met his wife. Like, he learned along the way that friendship, reciprocal relationship, one anothering would be the course that would change the way he lived. Receiving in the way of Jesus is often found in the command to love one another. For me, there's a deep expectation in my brothers and sisters that I would give love, they would receive love, they would give love, and I would receive love. And so in the kingdom, I think there is a call to both be one who gives what I have, whatever I have, and be able to receive whatever someone gives me. And that would be the exchange rate of a brother and sister that would tell the whole world that we're his people. And so if I were going to Kevan's house and I would just give, and not see anything in him in return, that means something's off in me. And so it's my call and my burden to go into relationships where, with my brothers and sisters, I fully expect generosity both ways. And I think it tells the world that we're his people when we do that. So we just show up. And the exchange is what friendship should be. Love between two people, back and forth. I think dignity thrives in friendship. I think from a distance, right? We think we have an assumption of a people group, generalities. But when we get close and we see the pores and the sweat and the wrestling, and we hear the intonation of their voice, and we see the glimmer of their eye and the spark of their soul, we begin to fall in love with who they are. And it's not that we minimize the brokenness of them, it's that we begin to hold all of it. It looks like Jesus walking streets amongst brokenness, sitting with tax collectors and sinners. To the religious world, that was just the most atrocious reality. To the kingdom of heaven, it was the display of our invitation. He reclined with the tax collector and sinner and remained faithful to his Father all in one moment. So I don't look at Kevan and dismiss his body or his need. I love all that he is. And that only happens by proximate presence. There's no way around it.